ਤੇ ਉਧਰ ਅਲਬਰਟਾ ਦੀ ਪ੍ਰੀਮੀਅਰ ਰੇਚਲ ਨੋਟਲੀ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ ਹੈ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਅਲਬਰਟਾ ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੇ ਲੀਡਰ ਜੈਸਨ ਕੈਨੀ ਨੂੰ ਕੱਟੜਪੰਥੀ ਤੇ ਘਿਣਾ ਵਾਲੀ ਰਾਜਨੀਤੀ ਬੰਦ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਕਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਆਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਐਡਮਿੰਟਨ ਤੋਂ UCP ਦੇ ਉਮੀਦਵਾਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤਸਵੀਰਾਂ 'ਚ ਓਡਿਨ ਦੇ ਸਿਪਾਹੀਆਂ ਔਂਡੀਅਨ ਦੇ ਇੱਕ ਵਿਰੋਧੀ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਸਮੂਹ ਹੈ, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਫਿਨਲੈਂਡ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਤਪੰਨ ਹੋਇਆ, ਜਿਸ ਦਾ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਯੂਰਪ ਦੇ ਨਵੇਂ ਨਾਜ਼ੀ ਸਮੂਹ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੈ। ਨੋਟਲੀ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅਲਬਰਟਾ 'ਚ ਨਫ਼ਰਤ ਲਈ ਕੋਈ ਥਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਖਾਤਮੇ ਲਈ ਸੂਬਾ ਲਗਾਤਾਰ ਲੜਾਈ ਲੜ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਪ੍ਰੀਮੀਅਰ ਨੋਟਲੀ ਨੇ ਅਲਬਰਟਾ ਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਸੱਭਿਆਚਾਰਕ ਸੂਬਾ ਕਰਾਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੈ।
So, as many of you know, over the weekend, 3 UCP candidates had their photographs taken with members of a group called Soldiers of Odin. The Soldiers of Odin, for those who don't know, are a racist, anti-immigrant, white nationalist organization. After those photos were made public, Mr. Kenny said in a tweet that it was a mistake. Now, I believe that when something like this happens, Albertans are inclined to give the benefit of the doubt. If it was an isolated incident for which there is a reasonable explanation, then of course Albertans will be, I have no doubt, forgiving and absolutely accept Mr. Kenny's explanation. The problem is that it's not actually an isolated incident. Over the last number of months, there have been at least 8 cases where UCP candidates seeking nominations have espoused racist and/or homophobic views. In 6 of those cases, the UCP allowed those candidates to stand for nomination. So as Premier, I want to say 2 things. First, this is very serious and should not be downplayed. Alberta's minority communities need to know that their government stands with them, that every elected official stands with them, whatever party they belong to. This is their province as much as anyone else's. There is no place for groups like the Soldiers of Odin in our public life. Albertans stand united against the racist views they espouse. In Alberta, we don't care who you love, where you worship, or the color of your skin. The only thing that matters is the content of your character. Now, given the pattern of behavior, I think it is fair for Albertans to conclude that the UCP has a bit of a problem, and quite frankly, Mr. Kenny needs to address this. Going on Twitter to say the UCP is not racist, while important, is clearly not enough. Now, I have no doubt that Mr. Kenny himself is not racist, but as a public official, Mr. Kenny has a duty to do more than tweet his disavowals. He needs to speak decisively and forcefully to this issue. He needs to hold people accountable. And he needs to stop approving candidates for nomination who espouse hate in any of its forms. I want to be clear. This should not be a partisan issue. This is a question of basic leadership. In Alberta, we need to confront racism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and homophobia in all of its forms. The fact is, we are living in an uncertain time. In the United States, in parts of Canada, and around the world, we are seeing a disturbing rise in hate. So let no one misunderstand. In Alberta, that is not who we are. That's not what this province is about. And as public officials, it is incumbent on us to do everything that we can to ensure it doesn't happen here. Well, I don't know exactly why it's happening. What we know is I think that you can say things on Twitter or you can act more decisively to ensure that these kinds of things do not happen. So we talk about the fact that there's been a number of candidates who, while not successfully nominated, were allowed to seek nomination. That should not be a thing that happens. And I think they have to take much more leadership with respect to that. And I think that it needs to be unequivocal because, as I've said before, there is a troubling trend that we are seeing, and leaders in all parties must be very clear that this is not acceptable. And you know, I think there are opportunities for candidates to change, for people to change. That's what we hope. You know, I mean, if you look at some of the things that we saw from the majority of public officials in Alberta a decade and a half ago or 2 decades ago on issues of LGBTQ issues, we know that Albertans have changed and those people have changed, and so change is good and we need to embrace that. But first of all, they need to not espouse their change only after they've been challenged on their positions. They need to own that change before they run, and they need to make it very clear that that has happened. And again, saying, oh, that was just 3 years ago, that's not enough.